You know that moment when you read a sign and think, who wrote this? Not angry, not rebellious, just confused enough to want a pen. One word added, one sentence crossed out, and suddenly the sign makes more sense than it ever did. Be honest. Have you ever thought, if I fixed this, I'd be the one in trouble? Even though it would finally be true? Someone actually did. And yes, it was vandalism, illegal, stupid. But somehow, that tiny dumb edit explained reality better than the official version ever did. These are 45 acts that shouldn't have worked, but exposed how broken the system already was. Fact 1. The bus stop sign that triggered a city audit. At 7:40 a.m. in a rainy Chicago commute, an office worker stood at a bus stop under a sign that promised real-time arrival updates. The screen was blank, again, while 3 buses arrived late with no warning. Someone had added a small note beneath the promise, in a different reality. People laughed, took photos, and posted it before the next bus arrived. By lunch, local news was showing the image while riders shared months of complaints. The transit agency removed the sign that afternoon, then announced an equipment review. That review turned into an audit, contract disputes, and public hearings about wasted spending. Ask yourself, how many smart city claims survive one honest sentence? The edit was illegal and it didn't fix the buses. It just made the lie impossible to ignore. And that's why it caused more damage than the broken screen ever did. Fact 2. The parking rules that became refund day. During a lunch break in downtown Phoenix, a delivery driver tried to decode a parking sign that read like a riddle. Time windows, exceptions, arrows that pointed nowhere. He parked anyway and got ticketed, like everyone else. Overnight, the sign gained one brutal translation: "You will get ticketed." The next morning, drivers weren't angry. They were relieved, because it finally matched reality. Photos spread, and suddenly the city couldn't pretend the rules were clear. A council member demanded answers on camera. Tickets were reviewed. Refunds were issued. A vendor contract was questioned. Ask yourself, how often does bureaucracy hide behind confusing language and call it compliance? The vandalism was illegal. The consequences were expensive. But the real genius wasn't the marker. It was how quickly the system panicked once confusion became readable. Fact 3. The safety cameras sign with no cameras. On a Friday night outside a strip mall grocery store in suburban Atlanta, a cashier walked to her car under a sign that said, "Cameras in use for your safety." Everyone knew there were no working cameras. The parking lot had been hit multiple times. That's why the edit landed so hard. For decoration. Customers laughed. Staff shared it. The landlord didn't. Within hours, the sign disappeared, followed by a wave of demands the owners couldn't dodge anymore. Tenants threatened to leave. Shoppers complained about misleading safety claims, and a local reporter asked the only question that mattered. So, were there cameras or not? Suddenly, money appeared for upgrades. Ask yourself, why does a joke fund improvements faster than incident reports? Still vandalism, still illegal. But the damage wasn't the ink. It was the truth becoming public. Fact 4. The ethics hotline that went viral for the wrong reason. In a corporate office hallway in Dallas, a tired employee stared at a glossy poster. "Report concerns anonymously. We listen." He just watched a coworker get punished for bad attitude after speaking up. Overnight, the poster gained a line, "Anonymous, until it's inconvenient." People laughed, then got quiet, because it felt accurate. HR ripped it down and launched a hunt for the culprit. That hunt became the story. Employees screenshot the poster, shared retaliation anecdotes, and suddenly the company's ethics culture was trending online for all the wrong reasons. External compliance teams got involved. Trainings multiplied. Morale collapsed harder. Ask yourself, why do systems investigate sarcasm faster than misconduct? The edit was illegal and risky, but it worked because it translated corporate poetry into plain English, and plain English is what terrifies a system built on slogans. Fact 5. The affordable housing banner that summoned journalists. On a Saturday morning in Los Angeles, a renter waiting for a showing laughed at a giant banner. Affordable housing for all. The rent listed on the flyer said otherwise. Overnight, the banner gained one tiny correction. For some. The joke spread instantly because everyone already felt it. By afternoon, reporters were calling the developer. By Monday, officials were forced to explain the definition of affordable on live TV. The banner was removed, but the fallout stayed. Contracts were scrutinized, subsidy details became public, and community meetings turned hostile. Ask yourself, how often does marketing borrow moral language and hope no one asks for receipts? The vandalism was illegal, the damage was reputational, but the real failure was believing a slogan could survive the first honest edit from someone who actually pays rent. Fact 6. The office exit sign that shut down a floor. Late one Tuesday evening in a Boston office tower, a cleaning worker noticed an emergency exit sign pointing to a door permanently blocked by storage carts. Everyone on the floor already knew it was useless. That's why the edit landed. In theory. By the next morning, photos were circulating among employees. Someone forwarded it to building management. Management forwarded it to legal. Legal forwarded it to the fire marshal. The result was immediate. An entire floor shut down, mandatory evacuations, and a costly reconfiguration ordered within days. Ask yourself this: how many safety signs are just decorative? Confidence? The vandalism was illegal and removed quickly. But the shutdown wasn't caused by ink. It was caused by a sign that promised safety without providing it. One sarcastic parenthesis triggered inspections years of silence never did. Fact 7. The community feedback box that ended participation. During a weekday lunch rush at a city hall in Ohio, a resident dropped a handwritten note into a dusty box labeled Community Feedback. The box was overflowing. None of the notes had been answered. Overnight, someone taped a message above it. No one reads this. People laughed, took photos, and, critically, stopped using the box entirely. Officials removed the message the same morning, but the damage stuck. Local groups demanded proof of engagement. Meetings got heated. Participation dropped. The city quietly retired the program weeks later. Ask yourself this: how often do systems ask for input just to look responsive? The vandalism was illegal. The collapse of trust was not. The marker didn't silence feedback. It proved it already was. Fact 8. The luxury mall map that became a liability. On a busy Saturday afternoon in a Florida shopping mall, confused shoppers crowded around a directory map that clearly didn't match the actual layout. Stores had moved years ago. The map hadn't. Someone added a handwritten arrow and wrote, "Good luck." Shoppers laughed, and then complained. Mall management removed the sign immediately, but photos were already everywhere. Retail tenants demanded updates. Lawyers asked about misleading signage after a customer injury. The mall replaced every directory at significant cost. Ask yourself this: why does sarcasm force maintenance faster than customer service desks? The edit was illegal. The expense came from neglect. The map wasn't vandalized into being wrong. It was mocked for already being useless. Fact 9. The employees or family poster that accelerated turnover. During a midnight shift change at a warehouse in Nevada, tired workers passed a poster reading, "Our employees are our family." Layoffs had just happened. Someone added one sentence underneath, "We argue about money too." The laugh was immediate and sharp. Management tore it down and threatened consequences. That threat backfired. Screenshots spread. Former employees chimed in. Exit interviews piled up. Turnover spiked within weeks. Ask yourself this: why does fake warmth collapse instantly under humor? The vandalism was illegal and risky, but the resignations weren't caused by ink. They were caused by recognition. The poster didn't get defaced. It got translated. Fact 10. The smart city sensor that wasn't smart. At a newly renovated downtown plaza in California, commuters walked past a sign bragging about smart city sensors improving your experience. The trash cans overflowed daily. Lights malfunction nightly. Someone added a quiet note: Coming soon. The joke spread, and reporters followed. The city was forced to admit the censors hadn't been activated yet, despite years of press releases. Contracts were questioned, budgets reopened, officials scrambled. Ask yourself this: how often do systems announce success before doing the work? The vandalism was illegal. The embarrassment was earned. The marker didn't expose failure. It timestamped. Fact 11. The school drop-off sign that summoned inspectors. On a chaotic weekday morning in suburban New Jersey, a parent waited in a long school drop-off line under a sign that read, "No stopping at any time." Teachers waved cars forward anyway. Parents stopped anyway. Everyone got yelled at anyway. Overnight, the sign gained a small clarification. Except every morning. Parents laughed. Photos spread. By noon, the district office demanded removal. Then, inspectors arrived, because contradictory signage around schools is a liability nightmare. The pickup zone was audited, cones were moved, staff retrained, and a new sign ordered. Ask yourself, how many rules exist only to look strict? The edit was illegal. The fallout was expensive. The joke didn't cause chaos, it documented it. The system wasn't embarrassed by humor. It was embarrassed by how accurate the humor felt to everyone stuck in line. Fact 12. The hotel complimentary breakfast that got refunds. During a sold-out weekend in a downtown Denver hotel, guests lined up under a banner promising complimentary breakfast. What they found was coffee and empty trays. One guest added a paper note to the stand. While supplies last, very last. Laughter turned into posts. Posts turned into calls. Management removed the note and apologized, but refunds followed. Reviews tanked. Corporate updated brand standards. Ask yourself, why does sarcasm travel faster than apologies? The vandalism was illegal and removed quickly. The damage wasn't. The banner wasn't ruined by a note. It was ruined by the promise being too broad to survive reality. The edit didn't invent scarcity. It named it. Fact 13. The quiet car that finally wasn't. On an early morning commuter train in Northern California, riders stepped into a car labeled "Quiet Car." Phones rang, conversations happened. No enforcement ever came. A tired commuter taped a handwritten line beneath the label, emotionally. Riders laughed and started shushing. Conductors noticed. By the end of the week, announcements returned and staff enforced the rule. Ask yourself, how often does a rule need a punchline to be respected? The edit was illegal and removed. The behavior change wasn't. The car became quiet for the first time in months. The marker didn't create order, it created consensus, and that scared a system used to ignoring its own signs. Fact 14. The open 24 hours store that wasn't late. At night in a small Texas town, a traveler pulled into a gas station glowing with a sign that said, "Open 24 hours." The doors were locked. Again. Someone taped a note to the door, "Except when we close." The owner tore it down in the morning. Then the county did a compliance check on misleading signage. Fines followed. The hours were corrected permanently. Ask yourself, why do businesses keep promises they can't keep? The vandalism was illegal. The correction was overdue. The note didn't shut the store. It forced honesty. The sign didn't lose credibility because of tape. It lost it because midnight kept happening. Fact 15. The office printer sign that triggered a budget review. In a crowded office in Seattle during end-of-quarter crunch, employees queued at a printer labeled "State of the Art." It jammed constantly. Someone added a line. In 2014. Laughter spread. IT removed the note and warned staff. Then leadership asked why the joke landed. Usage data was pulled, downtime was calculated, a budget review followed. New equipment was approved. Ask yourself, why does ridicule unlock funding faster than tickets? The vandalism was illegal and petty. The outcome was expensive and permanent. The printer wasn't defaced into being old, it was called old. and that was enough to end the pretending. Fact 16. The fire exit that finally became one. At 6:15 p.m. during rush hour in a mid-rise office building in Brooklyn, employees poured into the stairwell after a fire alarm test. The sign said, "Fire exit." The door was locked. It always was. Overnight, someone added a thin strip of tape under the sign that read, "Decorative." By morning, photos were everywhere. Building management removed the tape, then received a visit from the fire department. Inspections followed. Fines followed inspections. 2 floors were shut down until compliance was met. Ask yourself this: how many safety promises exist only until someone tries to use them? The edit was illegal and small. The consequences were not. The building didn't get punished for vandalism. It got punished for pretending preparedness was the same as preparation. Fact 17. The public parking garage that wasn't. On a Saturday afternoon in downtown San Diego, a family circled a garage marked public parking. The gate rejected them. A guard waved them away unless they paid event pricing. Someone later added a handwritten clarification to the sign: "If you're willing to argue." The joke spread instantly. Tourists posted it, locals piled on. The city reviewed the lease and discovered the operator had been misleading drivers for months. Fines were issued. Contracts were amended. Ask yourself this: how often does public language hide private rules? The vandalism was illegal. The embarrassment was earned. The marker didn't create confusion. It translated it, clearly enough that lawyers finally understood. Fact 18. The water conservation poster that backfired. During a heat wave in Sacramento, a grocery store break room displayed a poster urging employees to save water. The same store ran industrial sprinklers all night. One exhausted night shift worker added a line, "Except for profit." Laughter turned into screenshots. Screenshots turned into questions. Reporters asked about usage data. Corporate issued statements. Regulators reviewed permits. Ask yourself this: why does hypocrisy need a punchline to be visible? The vandalism was illegal and removed quickly. The fallout lasted months. The poster wasn't ruined by ink. It collapsed under arithmetic. Fact 19. The accessible entrance that triggered a lawsuit. On a rainy morning in Portland, a wheelchair user approached a building marked "Accessible Entrance." The ramp ended in a step. Someone later added a small arrow and wrote, "Good luck." The building owner removed it immediately. A disability rights group did not. Photos became evidence. A lawsuit followed. Renovations were ordered. Ask yourself this: how often does accessibility exist only on paper? The edit was illegal. The consequences were structural. The marker didn't create the barrier. It documented it in a way the system could no longer ignore. Fact 20. The customer satisfaction screen that went dark. At a busy airport food court in Orlando, customers tapped a touchscreen asking them to rate service. The screen hadn't worked in weeks. Someone taped a note across it: "This does nothing." Travelers laughed. Staff nodded. Management panicked. The device was removed, and so was the data it pretended to collect. Corporate audits followed. Contracts were reviewed. Ask yourself this: how many feedback systems exist only to look responsive? The vandalism was illegal and petty. The exposure was not. The screen didn't fail because of tape. It failed because it was already dead, and the joke made that obvious. Fact 21. The customer service desk that caused a boycott. On a busy Saturday afternoon inside a suburban mall in Ohio, a tired retail worker watched customers line up under a sign reading "Customer Service Desk." The desk was closed. It usually was. Overnight, someone taped a neat label beneath it: "For decoration." Shoppers laughed and posted it before stores even opened. By noon, the image had spread across local groups, pulling out months of unresolved complaints. Corporate rushed to remove the label and blamed vandalism. Customers blamed the company. A weekend boycott formed organically. Sales dipped enough to be noticed at headquarters. Ask yourself this: How many promises exist only because no one checks them? The vandalism was illegal and small. The financial hit wasn't. The desk didn't stop working because of tape. It stopped being believable because the joke finally said what customers already knew. Fact 22. The security patrol sign that forced hiring. At 11:30 p.m. outside an apartment complex in Tampa, a night shift nurse parked beneath a sign boasting 24/7 security patrol. Break-ins were common. Guards were invisible. Someone later added a handwritten note, "On vacation." Residents laughed, then demanded answers. Management removed the note immediately. Then tenants started asking for logs, contracts, and proof. Lawyers asked too. Within weeks, the property hired an actual patrol company and raised rent to cover it. Ask yourself this: why does satire force accountability faster than incident reports? The vandalism was illegal and rude. The exposure was accurate. The sign didn't create insecurity. It admitted there already was one, and once admitted, pretending became too expensive. Fact 23. The open enrollment ends today poster that didn't. During a hectic lunch break in a downtown Minneapolis office, employees rushed past a poster warning, "Open enrollment ends today." HR extended the deadline quietly weeks ago. Someone added a calm correction. Again. People laughed. Screenshots spread internally. Leadership panicked, not because of ink, but because the joke revealed how often urgency was faked. An internal audit followed. Deadlines were clarified. Policies rewritten. Ask yourself this: how often do systems manufacture panic to manage people? The vandalism was illegal. The policy damage was real. The poster didn't lose authority because it was altered. It lost authority because everyone recognized the manipulation instantly. Fact 24. The community garden sign that invited inspectors. On a sunny Sunday in Seattle, volunteers watered a community garden behind a new development. The sign claimed it was public. The fence said otherwise. Someone added a small note: "By appointment." Photos circulated. Advocacy groups noticed. City inspectors reviewed permits and found violations tied to public space requirements. The garden closed temporarily. Fines followed. Ask yourself this: how often does community mean marketing? The vandalism was illegal. The consequences were bureaucratic and expensive. The edit didn't restrict access. It forced the city to admit it already was. Fact 25. The anonymous survey that stopped being anonymous. During a stressful quarter end in a corporate office in Irvine, employees received reminders to complete an anonymous engagement survey. One employee noticed login tracking. Someone later wrote under the poster, "We can see you." Laughter turned into silence. Participation dropped to near zero. Executives demanded answers. External consultants were hired. Policies changed. Ask yourself this: why does trust collapse faster than systems can rebuild it? The vandalism was illegal and risky. The damage wasn't caused by the joke. It was caused by the truth landing before the disclaimer ever did. Fact 26. The emergency phone that was pure theater. At 10:20 p.m. on a near-empty subway platform in Queens, a college student noticed an emergency phone mounted to the wall. The glass was cracked. The receiver was missing. It had been like that for months. Someone taped a small sign underneath, "For emotional support only." Riders laughed nervously and shared photos before the next train arrived. Transit officials removed the tape the same night. The next morning, inspectors closed the platform until emergency equipment was replaced. Service disruptions followed. Ask yourself this: how many safety tools exist only to calm people, not protect them? The vandalism was illegal and small. The shutdown wasn't. The phone didn't become useless because of a joke. It was useless already, and the joke finally forced the system to admit. Fact 27. The staff at all times claim that wasn't. During a late-night visit to a hospital parking garage in St. Louis, a worried family searched for help under a sign reading, "Garage staffed at all times." No staff appeared. Someone added a handwritten arrow pointing to an empty booth. Spiritually. The image spread among hospital workers by morning. Administration removed it and launched an investigation into the sign, not the staffing. That backfired. Internal emails leaked. Budget cuts surfaced. Local media picked it up. The hospital quietly rehired overnight staff weeks later. Ask yourself this: why does humor trigger fixes that reports don't? The vandalism was illegal. The staffing gap was dangerous. The edit didn't invent neglect. It translated it into a sentence administrators couldn't ignore. Fact 28. The smart recycling bin that cost a contract. On a Monday morning in downtown San Jose, office workers sorted trash into a sleek bin labeled Smart Recycling, AI-powered. Everyone knew it all went to the same dumpster. Someone added a small sticker. We check vibes. Laughter followed. Then procurement noticed. The city audited the vendor's claims and found the technology wasn't deployed. Contracts were paused. Penalties followed. Ask yourself this: how often does smart mean sounds impressive? The vandalism was illegal and petty. The fallout was corporate. The bin didn't get exposed by inspection. It got exposed by ridicule that made the claim readable. Fact 29. The quiet zone that needed proof. During a packed evening commute in Washington, D.C., riders boarded a train car marked Quiet Zone. It never was. Someone taped a decibel chart under the sign showing constant noise levels. Conductors removed it immediately. Riders posted it anyway. The Transit Authority announced enforcement changes the same week. Ask yourself this: why does data need sarcasm to be believed? The vandalism was illegal. The policy shift was real. The chart didn't create noise. It proved it. And once proven, pretending became harder than enforcing. Fact 30. The premium experience that became a refund wave. At a sold-out concert in Las Vegas, attendees queued for a premium experience entrance. The line barely moved. Staff shrugged. Someone taped a note to the sign. Same line, higher price. Photos went viral mid-show. Promoters pulled the sign. Refund requests flooded in. Credit card disputes followed. Ask yourself this: how often does pricing rely on language more than difference? The vandalism was illegal and brief. The refunds were costly and lasting. The sign didn't fail because of tape. It failed because the experience never existed. Fact 31. The emergency assembly point that didn't exist. During a quarterly fire drill at an office park in Irvine, employees poured outside looking for the posted emergency assembly point. The sign pointed to a patch of landscaping now fenced off for construction. No one knew where to stand. Someone added a taped arrow under the sign, wherever. The photos spread internally before management arrived. By afternoon, the building owner had the fire marshal on site. The drill was ruled non-compliant. Tenants were fined for improper evacuation planning. Construction paused. Ask yourself, how many safety plans survived their first test? The edit was illegal and removed quickly. The penalties weren't. The problem wasn't sarcasm. It was a plan that only worked on paper. One word turned a checklist into a liability, and the system responded the only way it ever does: with invoices. Fact 32. The cashless-only sign that sparked complaints. On a crowded Saturday night in a Brooklyn food hall, customers queued beneath a sign reading "Cashless only, for your convenience." Cards failed repeatedly. Phones died. Lines stalled. Someone added a small line: "Unless the Wi-Fi quits." Laughter rolled down the line. Photos went online. By morning, consumer complaints stacked up with the city. Inspectors cited accessibility concerns. The operator was forced to add cash lanes and post clearer notices. Ask yourself, when did convenience become conditional? The vandalism was illegal and brief. The reconfiguration was expensive and permanent. The sign didn't break payment systems. It admitted what everyone experienced, and that admission turned a marketing choice into a regulatory problem overnight. Fact 33. The water feature that became a health alert. At a downtown plaza in Phoenix during a heat advisory, families cooled off near a decorative fountain labeled Recirculated water. Safe. The water smelled off. Kids still splashed. Overnight, someone taped a warning beneath the plaque. Not for skin. The city removed it at dawn. By noon, a health inspector had samples. The fountain shut down. Treatment costs followed. A contractor was replaced. Ask yourself, why do warnings get fixed faster than maintenance? The edit was illegal and crude. The closure was necessary and overdue. The fountain wasn't contaminated by tape. It was exposed by it, forcing the city to act before the heat turned negligence into headlines. Fact 34. The premium seating map that triggered chargebacks. During a sold-out playoff game in Chicago, fans compared seat maps posted near the concourse. The premium sections didn't match sightlines, obstructed views everywhere. Someone marked the map with a note. Premium prices, standard polls. Ushers pulled it down. Phones didn't stop recording. By Monday, chargebacks spiked. The team issued partial refunds and updated maps arena-wide. Ask yourself, how often does price rely on labels more than reality? The vandalism was illegal and petty. The financial fallout was real. The map didn't mislead because of ink. It misled because it promised something the building couldn't deliver. Fact 35. The "this area is monitored" claim that forced proof. Late one night, in a Minneapolis parking garage, a rideshare driver waited under a sign promising, "This area is monitored." Break-ins were common. Cameras were nowhere. Someone added a small question beneath the claim. By who? The sign vanished by morning. The questions didn't. Residents demanded footage after another theft. The operator couldn't produce any. Contracts were reviewed, new cameras installed, fees increased. Ask yourself, how many safety claims are confidence theater? The edit was illegal. The upgrades were costly. The marker didn't create fear. It asked for evidence. And evidence is the one thing a bluff can't provide. Fact 36. The emergency phone that closed the platform. At 9:05 p.m. on a rainy weeknight in downtown Cleveland, a commuter waited alone on a nearly empty platform beneath a bright red emergency phone sign. The handset was missing. It had been for months. Someone taped a note under the sign, for decoration. Riders laughed, posted it, and tagged the transit authority. By morning, inspectors were on site. The platform failed compliance checks and was shut down for days, rerouting thousands of commuters. Ask yourself, how many safety props exist to soothe anxiety instead of stopping danger? The edit was illegal and removed quickly. The closure wasn't. The system didn't punish sarcasm. It punished pretending readiness without equipment. Fact 37. The family-friendly venue that lost its license. During a Saturday matinee in a small Missouri theater, parents queued under a banner reading, "Family-friendly show." The content was not. Kids cried. Ushers shrugged. Overnight, someone added a line beneath the banner, "After bedtime." Photos went viral locally. The venue tore it down and blamed vandalism. Then regulators reviewed advertising standards. Complaints stacked up. A temporary license suspension followed. Ask yourself, why does one honest aside trigger enforcement faster than dozens of refunds? The edit was illegal. The sanction was official. The banner didn't become misleading because of ink. It was misleading already, and the joke forced a definition. Fact 38. The accessible route that became evidence. On a wet morning in downtown Providence, a wheelchair user followed signs marked "accessible route" into a corridor ending at a curb with no ramp. A passerby later taped a small label to the arrow, "Until here." Building management removed it immediately. Advocacy groups didn't. Photos circulated, inspectors came, citations were issued, renovations were mandated. Ask yourself, how often is accessibility a promise instead of a path? The vandalism was illegal and brief. The construction was expensive and long. The tape didn't create a barrier. It documented one so clearly that denial became impossible. Fact 39. The live data dashboard that froze the budget. In a city operations center in the Pacific Northwest, a public-facing screen bragged, "Live data, updated in real time." Staff knew it refreshed weekly. A visitor added a sticky note beneath the timestamp, "Last week." It spread online. Council members asked questions. An audit followed. Vendor invoices were examined. Payments were paused. Ask yourself, how often does live mean sounds impressive? The edit was illegal and tiny. The freeze was not. The dashboard didn't stop being real-time because of a note. It stopped because scrutiny finally arrived. Fact 40. The premium support button that triggered refunds. During a product launch in Austin, customers clicked a website button promising premium support. Responses took days. Someone added a comment near the button in a shared office screenshot. Eventually, the image went viral in user forums. The company removed the button, then faced a wave of chargebacks and subscription cancellations. Ask yourself, when did language replace service? The vandalism was illegal and momentary. The losses were measurable and lasting. The button didn't fail because of sarcasm, it failed because expectation met reality, and reality kept receipts. Fact 41. The evacuation route that failed its first emergency. During a real fire alarm at a mixed-use building in downtown Oakland, tenants followed signs marked "Evacuation Route." The arrows led them to a dead-end loading bay. Panic spiked. Firefighters redirected people manually. The next morning, someone taped a note beneath one arrow. Good luck. It spread before management could arrive. Inspectors returned. The building failed safety compliance. Tenants were temporarily relocated. Insurance premiums jumped. Ask yourself, how many plans only work when nothing is happening? The edit was illegal and brief. The consequences were structural and expensive. The problem wasn't the joke. It was discovering that the route had never been tested outside a binder. Fact 42. The zero-tolerance policy that forced transparency. In a large suburban high school in Pennsylvania, a hallway poster warned, "Zero tolerance for bullying." Students knew exceptions were common. After a public incident went unpunished, someone added one line, "Depending on who." Teachers removed it immediately. Parents didn't forget. Screenshots circulated. School board meetings filled up. An independent review was commissioned. Policies were rewritten. Ask yourself, why does one sentence terrify institutions more than repeated violations? The vandalism was illegal. The review was mandatory. The poster didn't lose authority because of ink. It lost it because the ink matched experience. Fact 43. The guaranteed on-time promise that cost millions. At a busy airport in the Midwest, a regional airline advertised guaranteed on-time departures at the gate. Delays were constant. During a long delay, someone taped a paper below the sign. Weather permitting, crew permitting, reality permitting. Laughter turned into posts. Posts turned into scrutiny. Regulators requested substantiation for the claim. Refunds were issued. The slogan disappeared from terminals nationwide. Ask yourself, how often does marketing outrun operational truth? The vandalism was illegal and petty. The financial fallout was real. The promise didn't collapse because of tape. It collapsed because the tape invited proof. Fact 44. The community safety camera that never recorded. Late one evening in a Midwestern college town, students gathered under a sign reading, "Area monitored for community safety." A theft occurred. Footage didn't exist. The next day, someone wrote beneath the sign, "Conceptually." The university removed it within hours. The campus paper didn't. Questions followed. Budgets were reallocated. Actual cameras were installed. Fees went up. Ask yourself, how often does safety language stand in for safety work? The vandalism was illegal. The installation was costly. The sign didn't become dishonest because of sarcasm. It was dishonest the moment evidence was requested. Fact 45. The "This is Progress" plaque that ended the project. At the ribbon cutting of a downtown revitalization project in a Rust Belt city, Officials posed beside a plaque celebrating progress for all. Within months, the area sat unfinished and fenced. Someone added a final note to the plaque. Phase 1. Photos spread. Funding questions followed. Audits began. The project stalled permanently. Ask yourself, how often does optimism get engraved before results exist? The vandalism was illegal and symbolic. The collapse was real. The plaque didn't kill the project, the timeline did. The edit just put a caption under reality. None of these moments started with bad intentions. They started with signs, slogans, and promises that sounded reassuring. Emergency exits that weren't. Safety claims with no proof. Guaranteed services that quietly weren't. What turned them into disasters wasn't vandalism. It was exposure. A pen didn't create danger. A note didn't cause failure. A joke didn't invent the problem. It just removed the padding. Every edit worked because it translated official language into lived experience, the gap everyone already felt but was trained not to say out loud. And once that gap became readable, systems reacted the only way they ever do, with inspections, fines, audits, shutdowns, refunds, and very expensive meetings. Not because a rule was broken, but because pretending stopped working. The pattern is simple and uncomfortable. Institutions rely on words to smooth over reality. People rely on reality to test words. When those two collide, the smallest illegal sentence often tells the biggest truth. Not because vandalism is smart, but because honesty, apparently, is still illegal in public space. And once you see that, you start noticing how many promises survive only because no one has written underneath them yet. Here's the part that makes people uncomfortable. None of these stories are really about vandalism. They're about systems that depend on being believed, not tested. Signs don't protect you. Slogans don't keep you safe. Promises don't work unless someone checks them. Most of the time, nobody does. So the lie stays polite, the language stays smooth, and the gap between words and reality gets wider, quietly, until one tiny illegal sentence shows up and says what everyone already knows. That's when everything breaks loose. Inspections happen, audits start, budgets reopen, apologies get written very carefully. Not because a marker caused damage, but because the truth suddenly became readable. And that's the absurd part. We punish the act that reveals the problem faster than the problem itself. So maybe the real question isn't, why would anyone do something so dumb? It's this. How many things around you still work only because nobody has written the honest version underneath yet? Because the moment someone does, the system stops performing and starts explaining. This was the Absurdist Files, where the smallest edits cause the biggest fallout, and reality only needs one sentence to cancel the official story.